This meeting is now being recorded.
Good evening. Welcome to the EDS Awareness Educational Series webinar. My name is Deanna Ham. Before we introduce our speaker tonight, I'd like to give you an overview of our free program for those who are attending for the first time. Again, my name is Deanna, and my father and I manage the National EDS Awareness Program based in Cincinnati, Ohio. I also lead the Cleveland, Ohio EDS Support Group. I was diagnosed with hypermobile EDS in 2008, which is the same year my mother passed away from breast cancer. My dad was a caregiver for my mom who struggled with undiagnosed EDS for over 30 years. We introduced our program at the 2012 EDNF conference to help EDSers form independent local support groups and to spread EDS awareness in their communities. We've started over 80 groups to date. Each group is given their own free website with a link from the directory and map. We receive feedback that conferences provide valuable information and social opportunities, but many cannot afford physically or financially to attend in person. So we decided to bring the speakers to you through the free EDS Awareness Educational Series. We meet every first and third Tuesdays at 7:30 Eastern Time. All the programs are free, and the meeting announcements and webinar recordings will be posted on our website for later replay. You can receive email announcements for future sessions by requesting the free report on our website. Tonight's presentation is sponsored by Body Support Store, where you'll find 250 products selected by EDSers for EDSers. It's the only funding for the program and usually covers our monthly web fees. Please visit the store and check out the products we sell. Just a general disclaimer, this presentation contains general information about EDS. Members of the EDS community voluntarily participate in the program. The information is not advice. If you're having any medical problems now, call 911 and always consult your doctor before making any changes to your treatment. Just to remind you of some upcoming events, the EDNF conference is in Baltimore this year, August 13 to 15, and John and myself will be speakers at this conference this year. For those of you attending live tonight, there will be an opportunity for Q&A after the presentation. Add your questions at any time by clicking the Q&A icon at the top of your screen. After typing your question, click the orange button to submit. Our speaker tonight is John Ferman, and he'll be talking about support groups for EDS. He is a retired professional project manager, IT professional, and distinguished Toastmaster, DTM. He's had many leadership roles in high-tech companies and community organizations. John helped to organize a volunteer 24-hour crisis hotline in the Cleveland, Ohio area. John and I started the EDS Awareness Program in 2012, and he is a full-time volunteer developing and managing this program. So welcome, John, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the microphone over to you. Thank you for joining us tonight to tell us more about support groups.
Well, good evening. As Deanna was saying, my name is John Ferman. I welcome you to our presentation talking about easy steps to start local groups empowered for support, education, and EDS awareness. So we're going to talk about a lot of different aspects of setting up support groups, some of the educational programs that we have available, and EDS awareness is one of our key topics for this evening. So again, Deanna was saying, both she and I have been working on this program since 2012. We actually dedicate this program to Carol, Deanna's mother, who suffered with undiagnosed EDS for over 30 years. And we recognize there are many others that are going through the same situation. In fact, the question is EDS rare, or is it just rarely diagnosed? And we've had a poll on our site for a couple of years, and we've had over 3,000 participants. And many of them, in fact, 70% of them, indicate that it took over 10 years for them to be diagnosed with EDS. In fact, 51% of those that responded said it took them over 20 years. And we find that totally unacceptable. And with the increased awareness, we're hoping to help people with EDS to achieve diagnosis much sooner. So our mission is to assist and encourage support groups to organize and spread knowledge about EDS in their local community. Also to help EDSers locate valuable information, continue to learn, and create resources to share with their EDS peers. So we're big on educating and informing local members, and also we're into informing local medical practitioners and the public about EDS, and we'll tell you more about that as we go through the program. So we want to promote EDS awareness on local and national level. So we're going to talk about these goals and how we're accomplishing many of them. So EDS Awareness is a national network of support groups. As I mentioned, we have 80 on our site. We have a support group directory and map, webinars, resources, public awareness information, support for EDSers and their caregivers, and EDS recommended literature and products and services. As Deanna was mentioning, we meet every first and third Tuesday, and we host the free EDS awareness programs with some primary doctors, and you can see those on our site clicking on the webinar tab. So EDS Awareness provides the following free programs, free webinars, coaching to start, grow, and organize the support group, opportunities to connect with experienced EDS support group leaders, the educational webinars we mentioned, assistance in planning and promoting your local awareness activities, and opportunities to get involved. Many of the groups want to do something beyond meeting. They'd like to get outside and get into their community. And we have some opportunities that you can take advantage. So if you haven't been out to our site, please go out and check it out. You'll find a number of videos and articles. We have over 400 articles on our site related to different topics of EDS, and go check them out. So the first questions I ask when I have a conference like this, or even when I do a one-on-one, is, who participates in the EDS Facebook group? There are a number of them around, and they're really a good way to get connected and ask questions of other people that have similar diagnosis for EDS. Who participates in the Enquirer discussion board? Now, if you haven't been out on Enquirer, you have to get out there because there's a lot of information. It's a discussion board where you can talk about various topics, and it's a wealth of information. We're going to talk about some of the other information that's on the Enquirer discussion boards. How many have you had meetups or get-togethers with others that have EDS? We're all about that as well as support groups that meet pretty regularly. Some support groups participate in educational EDS awareness activities, and we're going to talk about some of that. So why have a support group? Well, a key thing is to interact with people facing similar issues, those who really get it and can relate to what you're going through. Help you cope better and feel less isolated. Develop some friendships. pool your resources and work as a group towards common solutions. Learn better ways to live with EDS. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed because we seem like we're doing it all by yourself. But you can find others that can help you hold the load. Some groups are educational and structured. Some groups are online and others in person. Some of our groups have the local support groups as well as the Facebook online. So it's not a replacement for standard medical care, different than group therapy sessions, but it's something that is more personal and gives you an opportunity to feel less lonely, isolated, or judged, gain a sense of empowerment and control, improving your coping skills and sense of adjustment, talking openly and honestly about your feelings. And there's not too many places you can find to do that. The local support groups are an excellent place to share in a trusting, safe environment. Reduce the stress, depression, anxiety, fatigue, developing clear understanding of what to expect with your situation. Many that come into the program are new with EDS, and you can share with those that have been around for a little while and get some expectations of what your situation is and how you can move forward. Get practical advice, information about treatment options, compare notes about resources, particularly local doctors and alternative options. You can provide friends, answers, validation, but also it's very easy and fun to participate. So what we need to do is figure out what would you like to do. What do you do now? You say, okay, a local support group makes sense, so we can help you find an existing local support group. We have support groups on our site. You can get links directly to those support groups, and we'll tell you about that. We can help you search EDNF.org or Inspire or Googling Facebook sites and help you find a group that might be in your location. But many of the people that approach us can't find a group close to them. So we coach and mentor those interested in forming a new group, and we help them go through the process of establishing a group, finding members for the group. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So we can help you decide on method of communication and helping others with to help others with similar disorders. So, for example, the Facebook or a support group that's local and how you might want to get that set up. Each group is unique to meet its members' needs. Some groups are fairly small with a few members, and that's okay. They meet occasionally. Other groups are larger and meet more formally and more frequently. So there's no fixed format. It just depends upon what works for you and what's needed in your particular situation. If you decide to form a group, once again, we're here to help. You know, let's say that you wanted to start a group, and obviously you contact John, that's me, at info@edsawareness.com. And what we do is we encourage you to partner up with a co-leader. It's difficult to run a group by yourself, particularly EDSers we know have good days and not so good days. And if you set up a meeting, it's always good to have a backup co-leader that can help out if you're not feeling so well. So decide on a central location to meet. We've actually had some groups that started meeting in their home, and that can work with a few people. And then after that, you might move to a library or a restaurant or a hospital. Some groups actually meet at a business conference room. make sure that you look for handicap access when you're in public places. And decide on a day or time to meet. Some groups meet in the evenings, some on the weekends. So again, it has to be customized for the particular group that you're in. So how often do you want to meet? There's actually groups that meet weekly, and that's fine. Some monthly, some twice a month. There's some larger groups that meet quarterly. We'd like to see you meet more often than that. Work out your goals and agendas for a get-together. Typical meetings might start with the introduction of new attendees, some announcements, future meetings, exchange some successes, challenges, some information about doctors' experiences. Those types of things are typical for a standard meeting. So the next question people will say is, okay, we got a group, we're going to get set up, and how am I going to find members? And I had a couple emails today, and people said, I don't know how to find members for a group. Well, we have some pretty simple ways to do that, and these are only a few. We can let you know about a few others later. But first of all, you contact others you know who might be interested. Maybe there's family members. That isn't too hard to do. Get a couple other family members. One group actually started with 4 family members and they met at their house, and then they expanded from there. But if there's individuals you know, then obviously they're the ones you want to start with. Maybe you can get a co-leader there too. Check for groups on our map at edsawareness.com. Tell you a little interesting story. A few years ago, there was only one group in Cincinnati, in Ohio, and it was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and primarily because Dr. Tinkle was here at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and he helped get that group going, and they were a strong group. But there were people coming from Dayton, Ohio, which is north of here, and it was an hour for them to drive down. They couldn't do that very often. We actually had people driving from Columbus, which is an hour and a half northeast, and that wasn't real convenient for them. So obviously we started a group up in the Columbus area. We started a group in the Dayton area. The Dayton area started with 10 people and now has over 100. The Columbus group is about that size as well. So we have 3 groups down here, and then we started 3 up in the Cleveland area, and Deanna heads up the Cleveland support group, and she actually has meetings on the east side and on the west side so that people don't have too far to drive. So we actually have 6 groups in the Ohio area, and you know how big Ohio is, right? So you can check with our map for groups that are in your area. Maybe there's some people in a adjacent city that actually are driving out of their way. Maybe you'd like to have a local group so it's a little more convenient for them. One of the big secrets is go to Enquirer, find members out there. Those of you that are already signed up on Enquirer, go to the members page, type in Ehlers-Danlos, put in your zip code, and put maybe a radius of 20 miles. And you will get a list of people that are in Enquirer, and there's thousands of people on Enquirer that are in your local community. So you can friend them, send them a message, tell them you're setting up a support group, and that's a good way to get EDSers that are in your local community that you don't know where they are, but that you can contact them to Enquirer. Search on Facebook and other social media sites, and we can show you how to do that. One thing that people don't think about, but you can put a free ad in the local community newspaper. If you look at some of your local community newspapers, you'll see they have a community section that talks about different meetings that are being held in your city. And you can put a free ad in there. Give them contact information, when you're going to meet, where you're going to meet, and You can do the same thing on your cable networks. Many of the cable networks have a community section where you can actually post a meeting announcement on the local cable network. Generate a flyer or business card and post them at libraries and hospitals and doctors' offices. In fact, we got just the thing for you, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but here's an Asheville, North Carolina flyer, and it talks about their meetings, what to bring, and this is one from Rhode Island EDS Support Group. And this is a convenient one from our New York City group. It's a flyer that actually has tabs on the bottom of it, so you could actually pull off the tab, and it has contact information that you can make a call or send an email to the individual. Of course, this is our pride and joy. We just released a new Trifold brochure, and this is the outside, and I'll show you the inside in a minute. And this brochure can be accessed off of our site, and you can download it and print it. It can be downloaded in a PDF. You can print it in color. You can print it in black and white. And one of the things that we're suggesting to our support group leaders is they can use this blank section, which is kind of in the middle, off to the left, and create a little label with your contact information about your support group and stick it on there. Just don't put it on any of the other text, but you have that free area right there that you can stick the label on it. And make sure you get out and check out this brochure. And it was reviewed by Dr. Tinkle. He's a medical reviewer, so technically correct and a good asset for the EDS community. This is the inside. It is a trifold. Has some very interesting information about the various aspects of EDS, how to identify and diagnose it. So, okay, now we have plans to get our support group ready to go, and we know how we're going to find members. We know how we're going to publicize it. So now you've decided you want to set up a support group. Well, once again, you contact John, and John's going to ask you for the names of people that are going to administer this site. It's a regular website. I'm going to show you some pages. It has 6 pages on it, and it's like using a word processor. If you can use a word processor, you can use this. And we'll show you some pictures of it. So we ask you to come up with a generic email address. We're going to put that on the site so that people can contact you. But we don't want you to use personal emails because we like for you to keep those personal and group emails kind of separate. Talking about emails, when we contact this support group, we only contact you. So we don't have your members' emails. The only way the members get contacted is through you. So we communicate with you, and then we ask you to send announcements out to your members. We don't sell emails addresses. We don't spam people. So all your emails are protected and private. We need to have a zip code so we know how to locate you on the map. So we'll ask you for the zip code, and that way your button will be properly located on the Google map. And many of you have been out to our site. You can see the map of all our support groups. We have one in Canada. We have 2 in Australia. We now have the one in Alaska. And most of them are on the East Coast. We're trying to get them more onto the West Coast. And look at those little squares there. I'll talk about those a little bit later. You can not only zoom in on the map and look at all the different locations, but you can also use this pull down, and you can see all of the groups located by state and by city, and you can locate the group's web pages through that pull down as well. So we set up your web pages for you. And then this is a typical set of web pages. This is one for Deanna in the Cleveland area. We give you 6 pages. Typically there's one that indicates about, and then there's one for meetings. We have 2 pages, one for join this group and another one's for contact this group. And what that does is allows the person who wants to find out more about the group the capability to click on that button, put in their email address, put a question in, and once they click submit, it goes to the leader of the group. So you don't have your email address floating out there on Facebook or Enquirer or other places where people can put you on a spam list. The only way that they get a hold of you here is to click on the join button or the contact button. You can promote your meetings on the meeting page and list the various meetings that you have, your agendas possibly. And once you get your meeting page set up, then what you can do is take the URL for your meeting page and post it on Enquirer or post it on Facebook. And this allows others to see your group meeting information without you having to repeat it every site that you go to. You can just create the link, copy the link, and send it out. You know, what's surprising is we're very friendly with Google, and Google's friendly with us too. And you can actually go out to Google and you can put EDS Support Group Cleveland, and Deanna's page for the Cleveland group will be right on the front page. And many of the other groups are just the same way. EDS Support Group Dayton, Columbus, Charlotte, North Carolina, all those will show up on Google. So people can easily find you through the Googling. You can add a map, or you can add a link to a Google map and show people where your meetings are, where the location is, maybe even the building and what room it's going to be in. You can post articles, videos, stories, whatever you feel comfortable with. We want you to use discretion when you're posting information, but we haven't had any issues over the last 2 years that we've been doing this. So we trust that you'll be careful in putting information out on your site. So once we set up your pages, we provide you detailed written instructions on how to operate the page. We give you your login, your password, so that you can refer to this later on if you need to store it away, and the instructions for the site. The other thing we do is we host a personal conference call or webinar answering any questions about how to manage your support group and your website. I wanted to tell you a little story. We had individual. His name is Keenan. It's actually a guy who wanted to set up a support group in Wilmington, North Carolina. Now, first of all, we do have other guys that have support groups. We have John, and we have Steve, and we have Justin and Kurt that are co-leaders for support groups. So Keenan was really interested in the support group. He didn't have a clue as to what to do. So what we did is actually set up a webinar with the Asheville group. So we had Kay and Janet from the Asheville, North Carolina group. And we also had Crystal from the Charlotte group. And we had a webinar with all of them talking about Keenan's questions about setting up a support group. Now, Keenan not only has his group set up, and he has access to us for information about running his support group, he also has 2 other support groups in his area that he can contact and talk to them with any issues that he might have related to running a support group. The other thing we do periodically is we have support group leaders meetings. We had one right before May and we talked about our May activities. We had one just last month before the EDNF conference and talked about what we were going to do. So what this does is give you an opportunity to talk with actually senior group leaders in a group leader meeting, ask questions and get some help. So let's talk about some of the activities that you might be involved with after you set up your support group. You know, many of the groups will have a session and they'll start out maybe with introducing new members, and they might have activities and might talk about some doctors and some experiences. And that's one of the typical things that we might have in a support group meeting, and get to know one another. I want to tell you a little bit about a group that we just set up in Anchorage, Alaska. Now, Sissy's there on the left, and she contacted us and said, you know, we really need to have a group up here in Anchorage, Alaska. There aren't any doctors that have a clue as to what EDS is. And she said, I'd really like to communicate and work with others and form a group. So this was a few months ago, and we talked back and forth. We had our session. Well, last week, she sent me an email, and she said, I have my 10th member for my support group. And she was very excited about that. And they are meeting regularly, so kind of cool. And if Sissy can do that up in Anchorage, Alaska with 10 people, I think we can set up support groups in most local communities in the United States. This is a support group that meets in Alabama. They got a beautiful place to meet there. I like that, you know, with the wooded area behind there. Some of the groups actually have adult groups and children groups, and the adults and the children's might come together at the same time and just meet in separate areas. One, for example, is the Cincinnati support group. Amy runs that group, and her daughter, Elizabeth, runs the teen support group. And they meet together at the same time, just kind of split up in different locations. So there's a real need for support groups for the teens and the children. This is kind of a children's get-together in Alabama. They sent us this picture, and I thought that was really, really cool. They had some activities for the kids. It was kind of like a picnic, too. And you can have picnics and birthday parties, and this is an announcement for Arizona support group. They had a potluck, and it was for, obviously, EDSers and the caregivers. And I understand they do that each year. So invite a doctor or a physical therapist to speak at your meeting. This, again, is an Alabama group. They had somebody come in and talk about exercise. So this is kind of an exercise demonstration that they were going through. Exercise is extremely important for EDSers. You got to be very careful about how you go about doing it, but it's very important. So a member could discuss how they handle specific issues. This presentation, the Rhode Island group, Deanna shared with me that she had one of her members who was having a very difficult time lifting things because of her pain in her shoulders and in her arms. So she actually came in, gave a little presentation on how to handle small children and how to deal with them when you have EDS. There was another lady who came in and talked about some of the gadgets and kitchen appliances that you might have that would help you open up cans and jars and do different types of things as you're cooking. So just another idea about presentations that you might have at your meetings. You could actually listen or discuss one of our free webinars. You know, you could meet on Tuesday night and have it, a presentation, or you can play back the recording of one of the presentations that we have, because we do them twice a month and a variety of topics. So that's another activity that you could do in your regular meeting. You know, here's a partial list of the webinars that we have on our site. Actually, there's over 40, and these are some of the speakers that you can actually do replays of these webinars. The slides are actually on the site as well, so you can listen to the recording, and then you can go through the slides if you'd like to go through them a little slower. One of the key things in many of the groups is to manage a list of preferred doctors by specialties. And another thing that might be important is to actually have identify the person who recommended that particular doctor, so that somebody that needs help can actually talk to that person and say, okay, how was that doctor? So many of the groups will have a reference like that. We actually support the EDS help desk. They've had a very difficult time keeping track of doctors in local areas. So we actually gave them permission to come into our site and find a support group leader, and they can refer people to our support group leaders to find doctors in their particular area. And they found that to be very helpful for their helpline. Create a periodic newsletter. Now, not all groups are going to do this, but, you know, Sandra in the Dallas area has been doing quarterly newsletters for quite a while. And actually they talk about meetings that they've had, upcoming events. They promote our EDS awareness activities. And they feature a member each month to talk about their particular situation. So now that's an optional thing that just wanted to give you some ideas about what some of the other support groups are doing. So that's within the support group. So once your group is started and you get involved with some of those personal support group activities, what we like to do is encourage you to get out into the community and do some community EDS awareness activities. Now, one that's kind of interesting is that high schools, maybe even junior high school, have a requirement that students get volunteer hours to graduate or maybe for the honor societies. So, you know, groups can come to the school, or they're invited to the school to promote volunteer opportunities for those in need. You can set up a table, hand out flyers, discuss EDS, get students to volunteer and actually help your members. So this is really a good opportunity. It's kind of win-win both ways, and so that you can get out into the community and share information. Hopefully the kids will take the information home with them to their parents, and you might get somebody to shovel your snow or rake your leaves or mow your grass or spring cleaning. So set up this is the Columbus group, their presentation, and that's their banner on the top there at a service fair. Set up a display in a local library or YMCA or community center. Many of the libraries have a display box and they'll put books in there, but they also allow you to put in some brochures and some flyers and some information about your particular program. So we encourage you to kind of check out with them. This is a great activity for the kids, you know, so they can put together a collage of different types of pictures of zebras and the like. So we encourage you to, and we get the EDS awareness along with that. Set up a table in a hospital cafeteria. Now, this is a little harder to do. This is Deanna's group, and they had an opportunity to set up a table at the Cleveland Clinic in the cafeteria, pass out literature to doctors and to patients. Sometimes you have to have a foot in the door, maybe a geneticist or administrator that will help you do that. But that's a fabulous way to share information. As you can see here, they have a number of flyers. They got their computer here so they can show information on the website. And so that's a fabulous idea for sharing awareness. How about a church or community health fair? Many of us probably have seen these health fairs where they might be taking your blood pressure, or they might take your temperature or run some sort of little test. But you could also participate in that and set up your display. This is the Michigan group, and they have a display set up for a health fair. So think about that. This is the Asheville, North Carolina group, and there's a pain symposium. There's a number of activities like that, disability weekends and pain symposium, where you can participate and set up a display. Unfortunately, both of them have their arms in slings here, but I'm not sure how they both got their left arms at the same time. But Janet and Kelly participated in that program. So last year, we had one of our group meetings, and we discussed setting up an EDS walk. And the concern was there's a lot of organization and legal aspects about setting up a walk. So we said we really wanted to get involved with the walk, but we didn't want to take that on all by ourselves. We found out that some of our groups had been participating in the EDS-Chiari walks. So we partnered with the CSF community, and we got it set up where we are having Chiari walks. What's neat about that is that they do all the registration, and they promote it. We help promote it, and that way it's kind of a win-win for both. Kind of proud of this picture here. That's me in the middle there. But we had our first walk in Cincinnati, and we had 75 EDS participants that attended this walk on May 30th. We had 6 walks in Ohio. So we're going to be promoting that in the future, and we're looking forward to having more walks for EDS awareness. This is the Chiari EDS walk in Denver, Colorado. There's one I had some pictures of other groups. This one I particularly like because they have some zebras that are in their walk here too. I don't know how they did that, but it's kind of fun. So, working on more community EDS awareness activities. There's a lot of things that we can do to get out in front of the public and talk or introduce our topic of EDS. So I think you've heard about adult education programs. Sometimes these are run by the schools, and they have them at schools in the evening. Some of them talk about how to use a computer. Some of them talk about, karate and different types of activities that people wouldn't normally go to a training program for. But you can sign up and give a presentation, adult education program, for EDS. We did this last year in my city, Mason, Ohio. What was cool about it is we gave them a little write-up about what the presentation was about. They assigned a room. They assigned a time. They actually promoted it throughout the whole city with a flyer that they sent out. And we had 18 members that attended this local awareness activity. And we didn't do the advertising. the program did the advertising. So that was really, really cool. There's a lot of community groups around that, let's say, have monthly meetings or quarterly meetings that are looking for people that will speak at those meetings. You know, there's women groups, there's nurses, there's PTA, sporting groups and coaches. Boy, if you can get in with them, that'd be great, because that's an area where we need to really look into. So they're always looking for speakers, and we had an opportunity in the Columbus area. Andrea, who heads up the Columbus group, set up actually two meetings with the Citizen organization. We did a local and then we did a regional. We had 60 people that attended these sessions up in the Cleveland area, and they love to have you there. You know, they love to learn about different topics. We have a member, Andrea, in the Dayton group that actually gave a presentation to pre-med students at Wright State University in Dayton that we did up in the Cleveland area too. It's really great. It's easier to get in to talk to pre-med students than it might be to maybe doctors, and they're more, you know, willing to hear your message. So give it a shot. You know, if you can get in and talk to pre-med students, we can get them in early. Published an article in the local newspaper. You know, this is an article that we published in the Cincinnati Enquirer. Is actually during May, and this is a story about the leader of our Cincinnati support group, Amy, and those are the pictures of her children, or their children, Erica, Elizabeth, and JC. And the article is about Amy and the kids and their husband, Chuck. And it was really fabulous when I saw it. That picture that you see there was actually on half of a page, the half of the front page of a section in the newspaper, and they had another half page with the article. Did a fabulous job. We really were pleased with that. In fact, we used that to promote our walk, and that's probably the key reason why we got 75 people showed up for our walk. Get interviewed by a radio station or a TV station. You know, I was trying in Cincinnati to get onto a radio station. Didn't have very much luck. But we went up to the Dayton, Ohio area, and we actually had an opportunity to do a 30-minute clear channel, they called Focus on Dayton radio talk show. And we had Kay, who's the leader of the Dayton group, and her husband, and Payne, who was actually she's with the Chamber of Commerce in the Dayton area. So we really had and that's on our site. You can listen to that recording, and they still have it up there. So that's really pretty cool. We also had a 5-minute TV spot on the Dayton radio or TV station. So if you can get out there, and sometimes you got to push to get into the TV stations, but it can be done. Request a state proclamation and publicize it. So those little boxes that you saw on our map, if you click on those, they actually take you to many of these proclamations. So what we do is we encourage you during the month of May, or before the month of May actually, to go to your local governor and get EDS Awareness Month established in May by your particular state governor. So this one was in Michigan. This is one for Rhode Island. So they have their proclamation off to the side, and that's their banner for the Rhode Island group. Visit your state congressperson and discuss EDS. This is a picture of the New England group, and There's a few people here. John Rhode is the head of that particular group, and they've done this a couple of years already. They go to their congressman. They bring along notable personality, like they brought along Jeff Walensky, who's the geneticist in New England, and they talked about EDS, and they brought along their proclamation. So, that's another thing that you could do. And, yeah, Ellen's in there, too, and she's going to be speaking at the EDS conference. So one thing that we encourage you to do is, wear your zebra T-shirt. You can wear ours. It's available out on Body Sports Store. They're only $10 for small through extra large. But wear your shirt, and that will create some attention. For example, do some EDS awareness at the local grocery store. What if you have your shirt on in the grocery store? Somebody to ask you about that. But Deanna said a couple times that she would wear her neck wrap and her wrist braces, which she needs when she drives. And she might be in the line at the grocery store, and people would say, well, did you get in a car accident or something like that? And give her opportunity, because you're waiting in the line to be checked out, to talk a little bit about the Ehlers-Danlos. Make sure you have your business cards or your flyers at hand so that you can pass those out at that time. How about a local sporting event? What if you went to a soccer game and had your shirts on, your zebra shirts, or maybe a basketball game and just brought along your zebra shirt? They would get attention, and you could be sitting in the group and pass out your EDS awareness brochures so people would know more about EDS. This is a new one, and we haven't done this yet, but we've talked about it. How about a local parade? You go to parades and you see politicians, you see Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, and you see a lot of different groups, Brownies and the like. You could participate in a local parade. You could wear your T-shirts, you could have your banner there and walk down and have a stack of flyers and actually be out in the public where you can pass out literature to those that you want to know more about EDS. There's actually a disability parade that was held last month here in Cincinnati, and I understand they did one in New York as well. So you might see more of those kinds of parades coming up. But how about a walk or a run? We talked about the walk, but in Columbus last year, they actually had a marathon, and each one of the stations, each one of the mile markers, they had a person who was disabled. And at mile marker 22 in Columbus, Heather from Wapakoneta, Ohio, which is north a ways, came down, and she was represented as disabled at mile marker 22. We had members of the Columbus support group, and we had our zebra shirts on, passed out water, and we had an opportunity to talk to people and pass out literature. So how about participating in a marathon like that? There's other related awareness events. There's pain awareness month, there's disability awareness, a number of those, and you can participate in those. This is Ellen and her husband Stuart, and they're promoting Pain Awareness Month. They're from Rhode Island. This is a step up. This year actually, April 11th, we had a local conference, EDS-Chiari conference. We partnered with the CSF, and we had 3 speakers, Dr. Medikaitis and Dr. Nielsen from Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and then we had Dr. Ringer from Mayfield Chiari Clinic as speakers. So we had 3 speakers. Cincinnati Children's Hospital hosted. We had 60 in individuals who attended, and we also streamed it live. So if you had the URL, you could listen to it live. Later, we recorded it. We have posted on our site with the slides as well. So this is an example of things that you could do in your local community if you have a couple doctors that are interested in participating in that type of program. So one of the things I was going to wrap up with is I want to talk a little bit about fundraising activities. We've had a few of our groups that said, you know, I have to become a nonprofit. I just have to. And I say, okay, well, why are you going to become a nonprofit? Well, I have all these expenses and I want to, you know, raise some money to help people and for organizations. And I say, okay, if you want to do that, there are a few of our groups that are nonprofit, but the point I wanted to make is you don't necessarily need to be a nonprofit. You know, look for some free advertising material, just like these brochures. Post a little label on those and use that for your advertising literature. You could find a sponsor who will maybe pay for printing those for you and have them take the PDFs and print them for you so you don't have to handle the money. You know, that's the issue, is handling the money. But they could print flyers for you. They can print business cards for you. You know, find one that might be interested in printing a banner. You saw a few of the banners that we had. And banners aren't that expensive. Here's one that we use all the time at our conferences. Some of you have already seen that. This is a cool one I really like, from the Long Island EDS Support Group. And, you know, if you wanted posters for your presentation, this is the Asheville group. And those are 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper that they printed information on. They just put it on a poster board, and now they have a display. So they don't have to go out and print a big poster. They just put the information on a poster board. It looks very, very professional and very, very nice. If you want to take it a step further, you know, this is what Deanna did at the Cleveland Clinic, and you can get flyers and posters from a few different sites. You know, ednf.org has posters out there. There's other EDS organizations that have posters available. So you can sometimes buy those. Sometimes they'll give them to you free. So check it out and see whether you want to generate them yourself or whether you'd like to buy them from a different organization. You know, come up with a logo. This is, I thought, was really cool. This is the Washington State EDS Support Group logo, and obviously it's shaped like the state of Washington. Use Vistaprint. They're the lowest cost. They have deals throughout the year, so don't go down to Kinko's or Staples right away, because you'll get sticker shock when you find out how much it costs to print some things. So use Vistaprint. That's what we do all the time. And again, it's not necessary to really you know, become a nonprofit. Some groups say, well, I want to help somebody in my group who needs a wheelchair or needs a scooter or needs some information some money to go to a hospital or something like that. There's a half a dozen, maybe there's a dozen different organizations out there that can help you get money. This is one called EDS, and this is the person who's diagnosed with EDS and needs some money for a scooter. So she's up there. Now, one of the advantages of the EDS is that they charge you about 3.5%. Now, all of them are going to charge you something, anywhere from 3 to 8%. And what it partially is for is handling transactions for your credit cards or PayPal, MasterCard, whatever, and that's what you're paying for. So shop around. This is the cheapest one we found, and it's called EDS, but there are others available out there. encourage that donations go directly to your cause. So if you want to promote EDNF, then tell people go to the EDNF site and give your money. CSF, local hospital, a member needs, research center, whatever it is, tell people to go directly out to those sites. You can recommend where you'd like for them to send their donations. So don't take the money yourself. Have it directly sent to that particular cause. So I've been on for a little while, and what I'd like to do is kind of summarize where we're at and get on to some Q&A. So again, our goals at EDS Awareness Team is to increase the awareness of EDS until no one has to struggle without diagnosis. So no one feels isolated or disconnected from their community. We want to assist local groups to grow stronger and become more visible in their community. Link everyone to the most recent EDS educational information through articles and webinars and even links to other sites. And this is one that I talked about for a little while, and I got to tell you a little story about it. 20 years ago, there was a word called fibromyalgia that was out there, and people didn't know what that was. It was kind of a hocus pocus type thing. But the word fibromyalgia is now a household word. Now, people didn't understand it back then. I'm not quite sure I still understand it now, but it's a household word. We want Ehlers-Danlos syndrome to become a household word. That's one of our goals. So tell somebody about EDS today and every day. I do. I had a guy come in and he worked on the air conditioning, and guess what I did? I gave him a brochure, and we talked about EDS. So thank you for your attendance, and special thanks to all our support group leaders and members for their dedication to this program. And again, you can contact us at info@edsawareness.com. We're sponsored by bodysupportstore.com, so please go out and look at our store and see if there's something you'd like. These are our social media sites. So we have a Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest. We're on G+, and feel free to check us out on those various sites. So I'm going to actually close now, and we're going to go to a Q&A section. So again, Dee mentioned that you're welcome to put any questions up in our box. And now I had one question I wanted to start out with. Some people said, well, how did you get on a TV show? And, that is something I really struggled with last year and really didn't know how to go about doing it. And I sent out, information to a half a dozen of our TV programs, or TV stations in Cincinnati area. And it was difficult to get even a response. One thing is who you know. Sometimes if you get a hold of an administrator, or you get a hold of a newscaster who knows somebody that has EDS, you can get a foot in the door. That's kind of the way we did it with that news article that we had in the Cincinnati Enquirer. We knew somebody, and we were able to get our foot in the door and talk to somebody about putting up that program. And the lady who wrote that article didn't have a clue about EDS, but she did a fabulous job. She was very open-minded and wrote a very, very nice article about that. Any other questions? Another question was related to, can I start up a support group and get some help from other support groups, like you were saying? Well, yeah. As I mentioned, that group in North Carolina in Wilmington, North Carolina, we were able to partner with the groups in Charlotte and Asheville, and they were very happy to help Neil and Keenan get started with this group. So that type of thing we can do on a regular basis. We actually use this same webinar tool for those presentations, and we invite people to a meeting, and we show your site. We walk you through how to update your site. We walk through our EDS awareness site so you understand what information is on there. So it's very convenient, very easy for people to be able to get the help they need. Another question is, well, how big are the existing groups? And there are some big groups out there, and we're trying to actually break them down. We have a group in Phoenix that probably has over 300 people in it. We have a group up in New England that has a couple hundred people in it. And that is good in one respect, but it doesn't give you that personal one-on-one experiences that you want. You know, for example, the Phoenix, Arizona group, there's now a group that's spinning off in Tucson, Arizona. So I think that's going to be, you know, very very helpful to have those breakouts of individual groups. There are some areas in the United States that are really in desperate need of groups. I keep getting more and more requests for groups down in Florida. Had 2 requests today for Tampa. So what we're trying to do is find people that would be willing to set up support groups in some of those so-called remote areas. Obviously, most of the groups are on the East Coast, and I think there's a lot of activity on the East Coast. We're trying to fill in, you know, there's a few in the California area, and we're trying to fill in between. So we're really into trying to set up local support groups in those areas that really need them. We had a question again about, well, how do I find people for my group? And again, we talked about the Inspire is probably one of the key places that you can find people for a group. One thing that we recommend is that you partner with a doctor in your community, and you can print your brochures, maybe business cards, and ask the doctor whether they'll allow you to put those on their registration table when people come in the door. Now, the doctor doesn't necessarily have to recommend or promote you, but they might say, well, you know, you have EDS. If you're interested in partnering with some people, there's a support group, and there's a flyer out on the front desk. So people can pick up those flyers. When you go to the doctor's office, you'll see flyers all over. They're usually very receptive to allow you to post your flyer, particularly if it's a nice looking flyer like the ones we just came up with. You know, I see Kay is on the line. Kay's from the Dayton group. And I remember when we started the Dayton group, we had about 10 members that were interested in, but we couldn't find somebody that was ready to step up and be the leader. So we went for a few months trying to find somebody that would be willing to step up and be the leader. And Kay did that. I actually drove up from Cincinnati to Dayton. We had our first meeting. We had 3 people there, and that was fine. You know, we did that. And now the Dayton group has over 100 members. They have regular meetings that they attend. There's a couple co-leaders that help out so that Kay doesn't have to take it all herself. And that just happens over time. And when people find that there's a support group in the area, they just come out of the woodwork. I'm sorry. I've seen these groups grow so quickly. And you just need to pace yourself and get your group set up, get your web pages set up, and it can be a very rewarding thing for both members and the leaders. So I think we are out of our questions for this evening. Any other questions, Deanna?
I think you covered it really well. And I guess that's a good sign that people don't have follow-up questions. I think you answered a lot of the things they were wondering in the back of their head. So hopefully it's been very informative to everyone, and you can see all of the various activities people are involved with and how the groups are growing, and people are just really engaging people into awareness and helping each other and finding tools and resources to make their lives better with EDS and form really good in-person friendships. For me, that's one of the big things that I get out of my group is those face-to-face friendships, because it's just not the same as chatting with somebody online. You really need those in-person meetings. The people that you can actually visit and share life with, So
yeah.
I hope all of you find that, and we're here to help you achieve that goal. So thank you everyone for attending, and we're always here to support you and help you and answer any questions you have.
Yeah, so we appreciate you attending this evening, and all the best to you. If you would like to know more about setting up a group, or if you'd like to talk about some of these activities that our various groups are doing, feel free to contact us at info@edsawareness.com, and we'd be happy to work with you and help you through all that. So again, thank you for attending, and have a good evening. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.